Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you're here, you already know the absolute frustration of dealing with stubborn love handles. You put in the work, you feel like you're doing everything right, but that little extra weight around your waistline just refuses to budge. Well, I've got some news that might shock you right out of the gate. Doing waist exercises like endless side bends will absolutely not fix this problem. In fact, you've probably been lied to about how this process actually works. Today, we're going to look at the exact science, the math, and the biology of finally getting rid of that stubborn fat. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a really structured step-by-step blueprint today that's going to systematically dismantle the myths holding you back. We're covering 5 key areas: the diet foundation, sustainable calorie burning, the V-taper hack, building the frame, and finally, the mental game. All right, let's get right into step 1. Section 1, the diet foundation. We're going with math over myths here. You simply can't tackle the waistline without first tackling what you're putting in your mouth. So we're taking a strictly mathematical approach to establish a baseline for your calories over the next 2 weeks. Here's exactly how the math works. Take a look in the mirror. If you currently have visible abs, you're going to take your body weight and multiply it by 15. If you don't have visible abs, which, let's be real, is probably why you're watching this explainer, you just take your body weight and multiply it by 12. And boom, what this gives you is a simple, highly effective daily caloric target. You're going to follow this exact target for just 2 weeks. But, and this is absolutely crucial, during those 2 weeks, you need to eat roughly the same types of foods every single day. Why? Well, it comes down to a really fascinating biological process. That process is called the thermic effect of food. This is literally the caloric cost your body pays just to break down nutrients. It requires energy to digest food, and that cost is significantly higher for proteins than it is for carbohydrates. So think about it. If you wildly change your diet from day to day during this 2-week testing period, like eating heavy protein one day and then heavy carbs the next, you're going to totally mess up the accuracy of your calorie counting. Your body will be burning completely different amounts of baseline calories just to digest. So you got to keep your food choices consistent. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why that consistency matters. Let's say you grill a nice steak at home. It's probably going to run you around 500 calories. But if you go out to a restaurant like Applebee's, you're stepping right into a hidden butter trap, and that same piece of meat can skyrocket to closer to 1,800 calories. Seriously, because of all the hidden butter, oils, and sauces they use in commercial kitchens, your data gets completely thrown off. If you want accurate data to find your true maintenance calories during these 2 weeks, you absolutely have to avoid these hidden calorie traps. So, after those 2 weeks are up, you check the scale and the mirror. If you aren't losing weight, don't panic. You simply adjust your daily calories down by exactly 10%. That's it. If you started at 2,000 calories, you drop it by 200, and then you reassess. This completely takes the emotion out of the process. It's just data and adjustments. Moving on to section 2, sustainable calorie burning. Smarter, not harder. Now that the kitchen is sorted, we gotta shift gears to physical activity. We really need to challenge that deeply ingrained work harder, not smarter cardio mentality that so many of us fall into when we get desperate to lose weight. I can almost hear you asking this right now. Wait, doesn't extra intensity burn more calories? Don't I need to be doing grueling, sweat-drenched HIIT workouts to get a tapered waistline? Look, it's a totally logical assumption, but it is actually completely wrong when it comes to sustainable fat loss. Now, what's really interesting here is how the math just completely destroys the high-intensity myth. Think about one of the absolute hardest exercises out there, the burpee. You might burn about 15 calories in a minute of burpees, but let's be real. How long can you actually sustain that? 10 minutes? If you somehow manage 10 minutes, you've burned 150 calories. You're exhausted, your sustainability is incredibly low, and you're probably going to dread doing it ever again. Now compare that to simply walking at a brisk 3.5 miles per hour for 60 minutes. You burn about 330 calories. It's vastly easier on your joints, the sustainability is super high, and you're far more likely to actually repeat it day after day. Walking is mathematically superior for sustained fat loss, period. All right, section 3, the V-taper hack. Creating the illusion. We have officially reached the climax of our blueprint, folks. The ultimate cheat code. This is how you visually attack your waistline without actually doing a single exercise for your waistline. I'm talking about the Dorito chip shape. By visually creating a wider upper physique, you create this powerful optical illusion that instantly makes your waist look smaller. You need to build broad shoulders, specifically the middle deltoids, and wide lats that taper right down to the waist. And I mean this seriously, never do a side bend. Side bends can actually build up the muscle under the fat on your sides, which pushes the fat outward and literally makes your waist look blockier. No way. We want the exact opposite of that. To build that V-taper, you need a specific arsenal of exercises.
For the shoulders, you want lateral raises. You can do them slow and focused to really isolate the muscle, or slightly more explosive. For the back, you want to focus on vertical pulling movements that target the lats over upper back thickness. So we're talking lat pull-downs, pull-ups, rows where you keep those elbows tucked incredibly tight to your sides, and straight arm push-downs. This right here is the toolkit that physically builds that coveted V-taper illusion while you're waiting for the fat to burn off.
Which brings us to section 4, building the frame, etching the abs. Now, I know this is the part most of you care about. We are going to directly address the core and the muscles right underneath those love handles. So the crucial point is to think of your core like a masterpiece painting in a museum. Your six-pack abs are the beautiful painting, but your obliques are the literal picture frame holding it all together and giving it structure. Like the quote says, if you remove the frame, the painting just doesn't look as impressive. Your obliques provide that visual tapering that makes everything pop. But to get that, they absolutely have to be trained correctly.
To etch the core and build that frame, you start with classic movements. Crunches, where you move your shoulders toward a fixed pelvis, or crunch pull-downs. But to target the obliques specifically, you absolutely must incorporate rotation. Now, you can start with body weight, but you need to eventually move to actual resistance, things like rotational band work or henning leg raises with a twist. Adding resistance is what actually shapes those muscles, carving in that tapered look right underneath the fat.
And finally, section 5, the mental game, digging for diamonds. This is the final and honestly the most critical step, understanding the biology of why love handles are so maddeningly stubborn and how you conquer that mentally. Let's look at this progression and see how this builds. What men experience is something called top-down fat loss. When you start eating in a caloric deficit, your body doesn't just pull fat from your waistline first. It starts at the top. You're going to notice your face getting leaner, then your neck, then your chest. Eventually, you'll start to see your upper abs peek through. And dead last on this biological list? Yep, the love handles. This sequence is exactly why people get so frustrated. They think their routine isn't working, when in reality, their body is just perfectly following its natural, top-down programming. There's this famous cartoon of two diamond miners working underground. One miner has been digging forever, he gets totally exhausted, and he turns around to quit, completely unaware that he's literally just 6 inches away from a massive wall of diamonds. Meanwhile, the other miner keeps enthusiastically chipping away. When it comes to love handles, you cannot be the miner who quits. Seeing those upper abs start to show? That should be your diamonds. That is the biological proof that the fat is moving downward and the love handles are absolutely next. You just have to stay the course.
So I leave you with this thought. Nobody walking the face of the earth is genetically doomed to have love handles forever. Literally nobody. If you secure your diet math, choose sustainable calorie burning, build that V-taper illusion, and properly etch your core with resistance, it is going to happen. The fat around your waist is exactly the same as the fat anywhere else on your body. It's just the very last in line to leave. You might be just inches away from pay dirt right now. So, are you going to stop digging now? Stick to the blueprint and you will see the results you've been fighting for. Thanks for joining me on this explainer and keep pushing forward.